Have you ever dreamed of planting your garden just once, and then enjoying fresh, homegrown food year after year without replanting, digging, or starting over every spring? Picture stepping outside in early summer to find your garden waking up on its own. New shoots breaking through the soil, familiar leaves unfolding, flavors returning, harvests beginning, all without extra effort from you. That's the quiet power of perennial food plants. Today we're diving into 10 of the best perennial edibles you can plant once and harvest for a lifetime. These aren't finicky or exotic crops. They're reliable, resilient, and delicious plants that even beginners can grow with confidence. Whether you have a backyard, a homestead, or a small suburban space, these hard-working perennials will keep feeding you long after annual plants are gone. So take a breath. Imagine the future of your garden, one that gives back year after year. And let's get started. 1. Blueberries, a lifetime berry bush with big payoffs. Blueberries aren't just perennial plants. They're a long-term gift to your garden. A well-cared-for blueberry bush can remain productive for 40, 50, even 60 years, delivering generous harvests every summer once it's established. While they take a couple of seasons to reach peak production, the payoff lasts for decades. When grown in the right conditions, blueberries are surprisingly tough and low maintenance. Their main requirement is acidic soil, ideally with a pH between 4.5 and 5.5. Once that need is met, they become one of the easiest fruit plants to care for. They resist many common pests, tolerate cold winters, and become quite drought-tolerant as they mature. With simple mulching and light pruning, they'll reliably produce fruit year after year. Their value isn't limited to berries alone. Blueberries are also incredibly attractive landscape plants. In spring, they're covered in small white or blush pink, bell-shaped flowers that pollinators love. Summer brings clusters of berries that slowly turn from green to deep blue. And in fall, the foliage explodes into fiery reds, oranges, and purples, making blueberries as ornamental as many decorative shrubs. For the most abundant harvests, planting more than one variety is highly beneficial. Cross-pollination improves berry size, flavor, and overall yield. By mixing early source midno and late-season varieties, you can enjoy fresh blueberries over an extended harvest window. Blueberries adapt well to raised beds and large containers, which is especially helpful in areas with poor soil. Because their roots are shallow, they benefit greatly from thick mulch, which helps retain moisture and maintain soil acidity. As the years pass, the bushes grow stronger, fuller, and increasingly productive, eventually becoming one of the most dependable fruit sources in your garden. If you want a perennial plant that lasts a lifetime, offers exceptional nutrition, and enhances the beauty of your yard, blueberries are hard to surpass. 2. Raspberries, the self-renewing berry patch. Raspberries are famous for their energy and persistence. Once planted, they don't just survive, they expand, regenerate, and return stronger every year. Their growth habit is fascinating and efficient. Each cane grows for one season, produces fruit, then naturally dies back. Meanwhile, the roots send up new canes that are already preparing for the next harvest. This cycle repeats automatically, keeping the patch productive without replanting. There are two main raspberry types to choose from. Summer-bearing varieties produce one large harvest in early to mid-summer. Ever-bearing, also called fall-bearing raspberries, offer two harvests, one in late summer on first-year canes, and another the following summer on those same canes. Ever-bearing types are especially appealing if you want a longer fruiting season with minimal extra care. Raspberries are incredibly adaptable plants. They prefer full sun but perform well in partial shade, which makes them suitable for more locations than many fruit crops. They like fertile soil but tolerate imperfect conditions far better than most berries. They're also extremely cold-hardy and bounce back quickly after harsh winters. With basic pruning and occasional watering, raspberries reward gardeners with an abundance of sweet, nutrient-rich fruit. Many people find that once their patch matures, the harvest becomes so generous that they're freezing berries, sharing with neighbors, or turning surplus fruit into jams, sauces, and desserts. Over time, raspberries form dense, living patches that reappear every year without any replanting. The roots continue to spread slowly, ensuring a steady supply of fresh canes and consistent harvest for decades. A small planting can easily become a lifelong source of fruit, one that grows more generous with every passing season. 3. Horseradish, The bold, spicy root that never dies. Horseradish is a perennial that practically defines the phrase, "plant it once and forget it." This spicy, aromatic root has been grown for centuries, prized for its sharp heat and distinct flavor that adds depth to sauces, meat dishes, marinades, and homemade condiments. It's an old-world plant with a rich culinary history, yet it remains one of the easiest and most reliable perennial crops for modern gardeners. What makes horseradish so dependable is its powerful underground root system. Once planted, it spreads slowly but steadily beneath the soil, sending up leafy green shoots each spring and storing energy in thick white roots. These roots are the part you harvest, and they're known for their intense flavor, which becomes even stronger after the first frosts of autumn. Cold weather deepens the heat and sharpens the aroma, making late fall horseradish some of the best you can get. Horseradish is extremely tough. It withstands freezing winters, hot, dry summers, poor soil, and inconsistent watering without much trouble. Even if a gardener completely ignores it for a year or two, it will usually return just as strong, ready to grow again. That's why many people joke that the real challenge isn't growing horseradish, but stopping it from taking over. Because the roots spread, you should plant horseradish in an area where you don't mind it becoming a long-term resident. It's perfect for a corner of the yard, an edge of a garden bed, or a dedicated space where it can thrive freely without competition. A single plant can supply enough roots for one household, but many people plant several to ensure a steady harvest and plenty for preserving. Horseradish roots can be ground into fresh sauce mixed with vinegar to stabilize their flavor, or used raw in small amounts for powerful culinary punch. The leaves, although not as commonly used, are also edible and can be added to cooked dishes. This plant is a fantastic addition to any perennial food garden because it represents strength, durability, and reliability. Once it's in the soil, it rarely fails. It just keeps coming back, season after season, offering a bold, spicy harvest that brings food to life. 4. Perpetual spinach. Endless greens without replanting. Perpetual spinach is one of the most productive leafy greens you can grow, and despite its name, it's not technically spinach at all. It's a member of the chard family, but its taste and texture are so close to true spinach that most gardeners and cooks treat it exactly the same. The real advantage, however, lies in its lifespan. While regular spinach bolts quickly in warm weather and forces you to replant multiple times a year, perpetual spinach keeps producing fresh, tender leaves for 2 to 3 years straight. For anyone who loves nutrient-rich greens for smoothies, salads, sautés, stir-fries, and soups, this plant is an absolute treasure. It grows vigorously, rebounds quickly after harvest, and tolerates both cool and warm weather better than traditional spinach varieties. You can harvest it continuously and simply pick the outer leaves and leave the center intact. Within days, new leaves emerge and the plant keeps giving again and again. Perpetual spinach is relatively low maintenance. It prefers well-drained soil, plenty of sunlight, and consistent watering, but it's far more forgiving than many leafy greens. It doesn't mind occasional heat spikes, and it handles light frost with ease. In climates with mild winters, it can continue producing throughout the colder months, offering a nearly year-round supply of greens. Its resilience makes it ideal for beginner gardeners or for people who want a long-term, low-effort food source. Unlike true spinach, which often requires careful planning and multiple sowings to maintain a steady supply, perpetual spinach gives you greens without the constant stress of replanting or worrying about bolting. Just plant it once, feed it with compost now and then, water it occasionally, and harvest as needed. This plant is a staple in many permaculture gardens because it provides a dependable source of vitamins and minerals with minimal input. For families, it can drastically reduce grocery expenses for fresh greens. For survival gardens, it offers continuous nourishment. And for everyday cooks, it's simply convenient. Fresh, homegrown greens available anytime you need them. 5. Asparagus, the ultimate long-term garden investment. Asparagus has earned its reputation as one of the most reliable and rewarding perennial vegetables you can grow. Planting asparagus isn't a short-term gardening decision. It's a commitment that can pay you back for decades. With proper care, a single asparagus bed can remain productive for 20, 25, or even 30 years, making it one of the longest-living food crops available to home gardeners. What gives asparagus this extraordinary lifespan is its powerful underground structure. Instead of shallow, temporary roots like most annual vegetables, asparagus develops thick, permanent crowns beneath the soil. These crowns act as energy banks, storing nutrients year-round. During winter, while everything above ground appears lifeless, the crowns rest quietly below the surface, conserving strength for the next growing season. As soon as spring arrives, asparagus is among the very first plants to wake up. Long before tomatoes, peppers, or leafy greens are ready, tender green spears push up through the soil. This early harvest is one of asparagus's greatest gifts. It provides fresh, homegrown food at a time when most gardens are still empty and waiting. Patience is the only real challenge with asparagus. During the first year, and often the second, harvesting should be minimal or skipped altogether. These early seasons are crucial for root development. Allowing the spears to grow into tall, feathery fronds helps the plant build the strength it needs for decades of future production. Once the crowns are fully established, the reward is generous, dependable harvests every spring. Asparagus prefers full sun and fertile, well-draining soil, and it must be planted in a permanent location. It does not enjoy being moved, so choose its spot carefully. Once settled, maintenance is minimal. Occasional mulching, watering during dry spells, and cutting back dead fronds in winter is usually all it needs. For gardeners who dream of planting once and harvesting for a lifetime, asparagus stands at the very top of the list, a true cornerstone of any perennial food garden. 6. Rhubarb, the tough, timeless garden giant. Rhubarb is one of those rare plants that feels almost indestructible. Once established, it becomes a bold, commanding presence in the garden, producing thick, colorful stalks and massive leaves that give it an almost exotic appearance, despite its love for cool climates. In early spring, rhubarb truly shines. While many crops are still dormant, rhubarb explodes from the soil with vigorous growth, offering edible stalks weeks before most vegetables are ready. This makes it invaluable in the garden calendar, filling the gap between winter scarcity and summer abundance. The lifespan of rhubarb is nothing short of remarkable. Under favorable conditions, a single plant can continue producing for 40 to 50 years. Some historic gardens and old homesteads still harvest rhubarb from plants that were set in the ground generations ago, a true testament to its resilience. Rhubarb thrives in cooler regions, rich soil, and consistent moisture. It responds especially well to compost and organic matter, growing larger and stronger with each passing year. Because its leaves grow wide and tall, rhubarb appreciates space and benefits from generous mulching to keep roots cool and soil moist. There is one essential rule every gardener must remember: only the stalks are edible. Rhubarb leaves contain oxalic acid and should never be eaten. Fortunately, harvesting is straightforward. The edible stalks are easy to identify and remove cleanly without disturbing the leaves. Once mature, rhubarb demands very little care. It tolerates frost, resists most pests, and continues producing even when neglected. Every few years, the crown can be divided to create new plants or shared with others, allowing one rhubarb patch to multiply across a garden or a neighborhood. If you're looking for a perennial that delivers early harvests, dramatic growth, and decades of reliability, rhubarb earns its place as one of the toughest and most generous food plants you can grow. Sunchokes are extremely tolerant of poor soil, drought, cold winters, inconsistent watering, heat, neglect. Few crops offer such resilience. They practically take care of themselves, making them ideal for beginners or gardeners who want a low-maintenance food source. If you're looking for a perennial vegetable that delivers dependable harvests of hearty, nutritious roots year after year, Jerusalem artichokes are one of the easiest and most rewarding choices you can grow. 7. Egyptian walking onions, the self-planting onion marvel. Egyptian walking onions are one of the most unusual and satisfying perennial vegetables you can add to your garden. They don't behave like ordinary onions at all. Instead of producing flowers and seeds, these plants form small clusters of miniature onions, known as bulbils, at the tops of their tall stalks. As the season progresses, the bulbils grow heavier, pulling the stalk down until it bends and touches the soil. Once those bulbils reach the ground, they root themselves and grow into brand new onion plants. Over time, the patch slowly walks across the garden on its own. This strange habit makes walking onions endlessly fascinating to observe, but their value goes far beyond novelty. They are incredibly productive and provide multiple harvests from a single plant. You can cut the green tops throughout the season and use them just like scallions. Beneath the soil, mature plants develop strong, flavored onion bulbs perfect for cooking, and the bulbils themselves can be eaten, pickled, or replanted to expand your patch. Hardiness is where these onions truly shine. Egyptian walking onions are among the toughest edible plants you can grow. They survive brutal winters, intense heat, drought, wind, and long periods of neglect without complaint. Once established, they return every spring with renewed vigor, often multiplying faster than expected. Many gardeners find their walking onions thriving for decades with almost no maintenance. They grow happily in full sun but tolerate partial shade, and they're not picky about soil quality. Whether your ground is sandy, loamy, or clay-heavy, they adapt easily. Because they reproduce so freely, you'll always have extra plants to share, relocate, or thin out as needed. For anyone who dreams of a food crop that practically takes care of itself, Egyptian walking onions are hard to beat. They deliver fresh onion flavor for cooking, garnishing, fermenting, and preserving. Without annual planting, without special treatment, and without effort. That's why they're a cornerstone plant for low-maintenance gardens, permaculture systems, and long-term food security. 8. Jerusalem artichokes, the tireless tuber that keeps giving. Jerusalem artichokes, also known as sunchokes, are one of the most resilient and productive perennial vegetables you can grow. If you want a plant that laughs at poor soil, shrugs off extreme weather, and returns every year no matter what, this crop fits the bill perfectly. Above ground, sunchokes resemble towering sunflowers, often growing 6 to 10 feet tall. In late summer, they light up the garden with bright yellow blooms that attract pollinators and add beauty to any landscape. Below ground, however, is where the real harvest happens. Beneath the soil, the plants form clusters of knobby tubers with a crisp texture and a mildly sweet, nutty flavor, often compared to a cross between potatoes and water chestnuts. These tubers are incredibly versatile in the kitchen. They can be roasted, boiled, mashed, sautéed, added to stir-fries, fermented into pickles, or eaten raw for a crunchy snack. Nutritionally, they're rich in fiber and inulin, making them a unique addition to a homegrown diet. One of the most remarkable traits of Jerusalem artichokes is their persistence. Any tuber left in the soil, even a small fragment, will sprout into a new plant the following season. This makes them a true plant once, harvest forever crop. They return year after year, often increasing in abundance unless deliberately managed. Because of their enthusiasm, it's best to grow sunchokes in a dedicated space where they're allowed to spread without causing problems. When given boundaries, they are incredibly reliable and easy to control. Jerusalem artichokes tolerate almost anything you throw at them: drought, cold winters, heat waves, poor soil, and inconsistent care. They require minimal attention and still deliver impressive yields, making them ideal for beginner gardeners or anyone seeking a low-effort food source. If you want a perennial vegetable that produces generous harvests, improves soil structure, and keeps coming back no matter what, Jerusalem artichokes are one of the most dependable and rewarding plants you can grow. 9. Chives, a small herb with endless power. Chives may appear soft and fragile with their slender, grass-like leaves, but don't let their appearance fool you. They are one of the most resilient and dependable perennial herbs you can grow. Once planted, chives return faithfully every spring, often emerging earlier than many vegetables and herbs. As soon as temperatures begin to rise, they send up dense clusters of bright green shoots bursting with fresh, savory flavor. Their taste is gently onion-like, mild, clean, and incredibly versatile. Chives blend effortlessly into countless dishes, from eggs and omelets to salads, potatoes, soups, sauces, and dressings. A small handful can instantly lift a meal, adding depth without overwhelming other flavors. This subtlety is what makes chives a kitchen essential for home cooks. Beyond their culinary value, chives are surprisingly ornamental. In late spring or early summer, they produce round, purple flower heads that resemble tiny fireworks or pom-poms hovering above the leaves. These blooms are fully edible and bring a light onion flavor to salads and garnishes. Even more importantly, they attract bees, butterflies, and other beneficial insects, helping improve pollination throughout your garden. Chives are incredibly easy to care for. They grow well in full sun but tolerate partial shade with no trouble. They adapt to a wide range of soil conditions and handle short dry periods better than many herbs. Once established, a clump of chives can remain productive in the same spot for decades. Every few years, dividing the clumps keeps them vigorous and gives you extra plants to spread around the garden or share with others. Whether grown in pots, raised beds, garden borders, or tucked into ornamental landscaping, chives are a quiet powerhouse. They come back year after year, provide endless harvests, support pollinators, and ask for almost nothing in return. 10. Strawberries, a sweet perennial that never stops giving. Strawberries are often grown as annual crops on farms, but in home gardens they reveal their true nature as generous, long-living perennials. Plant them once and they reward you season after season with fruit, while constantly renewing themselves. Each plant sends out runners, long trailing stems that root at their tips and form brand new strawberry plants. Over time, a single planting naturally expands into a thriving, self-sustaining patch. This natural cycle makes strawberries remarkably low maintenance. Older plants gradually decline while younger ones take their place, keeping the patch productive with minimal effort. Basic care, mulching for winter, watering during dry spells, and cleaning up old leaves in early spring, is usually all that's required to keep them thriving for years. The payoff is extraordinary. Fresh, homegrown strawberries are in a completely different league from store-bought fruit. They're sweeter, juicier, and intensely fragrant, with a flavor that simply can't survive long-distance shipping. Whether eaten straight from the plant, frozen for later, turned into jam, or baked into desserts, strawberries offer one of the most satisfying harvests in the garden. Gardeners can choose between two main types. June-bearing strawberries deliver one large, concentrated harvest early in the season, perfect for preserving or freezing. Ever-bearing varieties produce smaller but repeated harvests from spring through fall, providing fresh berries again and again. Many people grow both to enjoy abundance and continuity. Strawberries are also wonderfully adaptable. They grow well in raised beds, containers, hanging baskets, vertical planters, and traditional garden rows. Give them full sun and well-drained soil and they'll flourish. As the years pass, the patch becomes denser, stronger, and more productive. A living system that feeds you with very little intervention. Few plants offer such a perfect balance of beauty, flavor, and reliability. Strawberries truly earn their place as one of the most rewarding perennial food crops you can grow.